and welcome to today's session. This is an NES Special Education Exam Preparation Study Group. This is session 1. There are a total of 4 sessions. My name is Tracy Vasquez, and I am here at Grand Canyon University in the College of Education, and I will be your host for today's session. This session is also being recorded. So we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, I do want to let you know that all attendees are currently muted, and that is to help eliminate background noise. However, I will be unmuting you throughout the presentation as we gather feedback from the audience. You can raise the hand icon next to your name to raise your hand so I can unmute you, or you can type in the questions box below. I'd like to start with a little bit of faith and learning. Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of any kind, because you know the testing of your faith develops perseverance. And that is from James. And here in the picture, you do see the cross here on campus at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, Arizona. So it helps to keep this all in perspective for us all. And here is today's agenda. We will be discussing the exam prep webinar. That is not this webinar, but I just want to share it with you in case you'd like to attend. We will be discussing the NES Special Education Test Framework. We'll discuss the study group expectations, since this is our first meeting together. And then we will be discussing Domain 1, which covers students with disabilities. We'll have a brief wrap-up. We'll have study group information exchange, and then preparation for the next session. So this information is on our exam preparation webinar, which is being hosted many times throughout the semester, but the next option is August 29th, which is tomorrow. It is a 1-hour webinar which is focused on exam preparation strategies. Not specific to any one exam, but just general in terms of preparation and strategies. So if you'd like to attend that, you can click on that link there, or you can also find the link on our PLN calendar. Now, the NES Special Education Test Framework is really a guide for you that details what will be covered on the exam. It includes the domains, competencies, percentage of test score, and I'll show you where that is. I'd like you all to download this. It's at nestest.com. You may have also received it by email, but I'll just show everyone where it is here now. If you go to nestest.com and click on Tests, and then scroll down to your exam, which is Special Education. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link for preparation materials. And then you're going to scroll down till you see the test framework. Here it is right here. I'll go ahead and click on that. And here you see the 4 domains. Again, today we are going to cover Domain 1, Students with Disabilities. You see the percentage of test score is 20% for Domain 1. And you'll see in this framework, it has the competencies and objectives that are broken down, that are included in Domain 1. Now make sure you download this document by clicking on the Save picture and save this to your device, because you'll want to refer to this throughout your time preparing for the exam. I'll give you all a minute to make sure you have this document saved. If you're having trouble, please raise the hand icon next to your name or type in the questions box. Okay, that should be sufficient. Okay, so today you have all joined me for this exam preparation study group. So just as a reminder, what the definition of a study group? Oh, I do see we have a question, so let me get that addressed here first before we move on. Micheline? Hi. Do you have a question? Micheline? Do you have a question? I've unmuted you, so you're welcome to speak freely. Okay, we can't hear you, so I'm going to put you back on mute. Okay, so the definition of a study group is a group of people joining in the study of a particular topic and usually meeting at scheduled intervals to discuss individual observations, reading, and research. So this study group will meet at scheduled interviews. Every other week, we'll have a session. And as I said earlier, we're going to have 4 sessions total. We'll discuss one domain at each session. So your participation, your preparation, participation, and contributions are valued during these scheduled intervals. They are heavily reliant upon your interaction, as we'll see as we get into this content here in just a moment. You are expected to collaborate with your peers as we complete the study worksheet. During each of the 4 sessions, additional collaboration is optional. You must study the content prior to and following each session to get the most out of the study group. Plan for approximately 1 hour per day. Okay, are there any questions before we move on? Okay. Please take out your individual observations, reading, and research for today's discussion. We will be completing the NES Special Education Study Worksheet 1. So I did send this out to all of you by email. So please pull up that document now, as that is what we will be filling out today so that we can make a study sheet for you to study Domain 1. I'll also pull up this document here. So this is Study Worksheet 1. Please make sure you pull it up on your computer as well, as we'll be filling it in together. I'll give everyone a moment to make sure they have it pulled up. Someone says they cannot find the document. So what I will do is I'll add it to the handouts file in the GoToWebinar control panel. Okay, it looks like we're not going to be able to attach it in the session. If you cannot find the document, you can search through the emails that were sent out prior to the session. I will also send you out a copy of the worksheet after the session, but you'll need to take notes on your own separate document. So maybe just pull up a Word document and start taking notes. Okay, is anyone else having any trouble? Okay. Looks like you guys are all set. So let's go ahead and get into the content here. Malia, did you have a question?
I did. I also am struggling locating that document.
Okay, just go ahead and take notes on a separate document, and I'll send you this sheet following the session.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Sharonda,
Yes.
do you have a question?
Well, I was just having problems locating the document, but I'm also going to take notes as previously suggested.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is a Domain 1, Students with Disabilities. You'll see that listed here at the top of your study worksheet. And within Domain 1, there are several different competencies. Competency number 1 is understand characteristics of students with disabilities. So we need to demonstrate knowledge of characteristics of typical and atypical human growth and development in various domains: cognitive, speech language, social, emotional, and physical. That's how it's listed in the test framework. So I highlighted there for you characteristics of typical and atypical human growth, because we need to be able to distinguish the difference between these. There will be some multiple choice questions that try to trip us up, and we'll need to be able to distinguish between what's typical and what's atypical in terms of cognitive, speech language, social emotional, and physical development. So I filled in a few for you here. So what is atypical in terms of cognitive development? What are some characteristics for that here? And we'll start filling it in. Sharonda?
And cognitive, as far as maybe having difficulty processing instructions.
Okay. That sounds great. Good job. Okay, what else? Amber?
Yes, maybe ignores other children or doesn't respond to people outside the family.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Okay, someone says trouble understanding material. We'll say class material. Amber?
Yes, maybe easily distracted.
Okay. Okay, that's a good start here for atypical. What are some characteristics for typical? And I put here a little hint. Think about the stages of cognitive development. Maybe let's start with listing what those stages are. And I'll give you a hint. These are Piaget's stages of cognitive development. Feel free to look it up if you have any sources handy or the internet. Amber, did you raise your hand?
No, but I can give some ideas. Maybe counting are those a type of cognitive points you're looking for? Counting 10 or more things?
Well, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but that's fine. That's still a good answer. Okay, Jennifer? Jennifer, right now it looks like you're self-muted. So if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. The sensory motor stage,
Yeah.
where they use their touch tasting senses.
Yes. Good job. Do you know another one?
Yes.
Okay.
The pre-operational stage.
Great. And what is that one?
That is the one where they use symbols to represent words and pretend play.
Great. Do you have another one for us?
The concrete operational stage.
Okay. And what is that one?
This is the one where they can recognize properties, substance, physical appearance. I think that this is the one they think more logical.
Yes, that is correct. And sequences.
Yes.
Okay. And one more.
The formal operational stage. They can think systematically. They're capable of reasoning and can create hypothetical ideas and explain various concepts.
Perfect. Good job. So helping us understand these various stages of development help us understand what is expected for typical children. It will also help us distinguish better what is atypical for students with delays in cognitive development. Okay, let's move on here to, let's go back to atypical actually, and see if we can think of any other atypical. Tanya? Hi, Tanya.
Hi.
Did you have something to contribute?
No, not just yet.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, I'm going to bring up a few other ones for you all here. Some atypical ones would be difficulty with learning colors, shapes, or basic concepts, trouble with more advanced concepts. Such as counting or language. And then also failure to generalize things they learn to other situations. Apply their learning. on to, does anyone else have anything to add for cognitive? Amber?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, so let's go on to speech and language. So we're thinking of atypical. What are some problems or delays in language development that we could recognize as being associated with something that's atypical? Jennifer? Jennifer, you're self-muted.
Sorry.
That's okay.
They may have stuttering or apraxia.
Okay, great. What else?
May have difficulty understanding reading.
Okay, we're talking about speech and language, so difficulty reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And other vocal sounds we'll put here, because we could have preschool children with some difficulties making those initial sounds.
They may make more babbling sounds than actual words.
Right. And along with that, they're also more likely to use one-word expressions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jennifer. Let's go over to typical. What is typical for speech and language development? Lisha, I'm having trouble unmuting you because you need to enter the PIN. So if you see that, please enter it, and I'll be able to unmute you. Sharonda?
For speech and language, typically they'll be able to have fine motor skills as it pertains to writing.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put that in physical.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, Jennifer? Jennifer, you are self-muted. Okay.
They typically can use more words.
Okay.
So by kindergarten, they have vocabulary about 2,000 words. They can identify different coins and pictures they see verbally.
Right. Okay. That sounds good. Thank you, Jennifer. How about Charlene? Hi, Charlene. Oh, Charlene, we can't hear you. So I'm going to put you back on mute. Okay, how about Malia?
Maybe the rhythm and fluency of their speech. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's perfect. Charlene says, are able to make letter sounds. Putting words together.
A greater depth of vocabulary.
Good. I'm also going to include here body language, gestures, facial expressions. Okay, let's go on to social emotional. And so we're going to first look at atypical. And I have a little hint here. Think about the delays in social and emotional development. Jennifer? Jennifer, you are self-muted. Okay. Let's see. I also want to take a look here and see if we missed anything. Considering speech and language, I'm also going to put following instructions here. Oh, for atypical, if they can't follow instructions, that would be considered a receptive language delay. Because we all know with language there are expressive and receptive language concerns. Expressive being how they express their language, and receptive being how they listen or follow instructions. I'll also say trouble reading sentences. Okay. Malia?
I thought we had moved to social emotional. Have we?
Yes. Yes, we have.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sorry. So atypical would be inability to interact or play with others.
Great. Do you have another one?
Maybe in that same stance, outwardly inappropriate behavior.
Great. Thank you, Malia. Sharonda?
For atypical, I'm thinking maybe non-responsive to emotional stimuli such as hugging or
Great.
handshake.
That's wonderful. Good job, Sharonda. Tanya? Tanya? Oh, Tanya, we can't hear you. So I'm going to go ahead and mute you again. Someone says they're not able to unmute themselves. I'm sorry to hear that. Difficulty processing own emotions. Yes, that's an important one. Can't understand others' emotions. Overly shy. Okay, let's go on to typical. Typical for social emotional. Charlene? Oh, Charlene, we can't hear you. I'm sorry. Malia?
Ability to role play, and
What?
also the ability to role play. Yeah, thank you. And then also a desire for physical touch, you know, what we would consider to be what every child would want.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Malia. Sharonda?
To have the ability to distinguish from different emotions such as anger, love, happiness.
Okay, perfect. Sharonda, do you have another one?
Um, for social, I guess social, it could be social and or emotion. Having the correct response in a social atmosphere as far as if someone were to engage them saying hi, they will respond back in the correct manner. So it's social interactions. Correct response, correct response for social
Yes.
interactions.
Yes, perfect. And kind of along with that, I'm going to put eye contact.
Okay.
Thank you, Sharonda. Tanya? Oh, Tanya, we can't hear you. Okay, I think we're good here. Let's move on. Physical. So think about the atypical development of gross and fine motor skills. And we got started here already for typical fine motor skills for writing. Okay, we have here Nicole. Independently initiate play with others. Students are able to follow directions and respond to touch. Yes, that could be social, emotional, or physical, or both. I agree. Thank you, Charlene, for the respond to touch. Okay, and then Inez, they're able to communicate with others. That really could be physical or speech language. We'll go ahead and keep it here for now. Atypical, yes, Nicole. Trouble with self-stimulatory behavior, such as hand and body movements. And someone said earlier, pointing. We'll say trouble with. Recognizing objects. Well, someone had something and I just lost it. I think it was the ability to hop. There it is. Hop, jump, skip, run. Thank you, Amy. Yes, and thank you, Amy. Fine motor skills such as using scissors. Well, also, along with that, we'll say eating and speaking, because those are also fine motor skills. Small grasping. Difficulty with personal space, excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll also say for atypical, holding their head up. Or sitting up. Anything else we're missing? How about motor coordination? Yeah, Nicole, thank you. Access need for physical touch or extreme dislike. Down here, I'm also going to include where we have that self-stimulatory behavior. They also could engage in rocking. Kind of goes along with that there. Anything we're missing? Okay, let's move on. Now here we have demonstrate knowledge of the various types, characteristics of various disabilities and the similarities and differences among students with and without the disabilities. I'm also going to add a new column here because I think it's also important that we understand the disability category. Okay, so now that we've transitioned, I'll give you all a chance to pull up your research or notes, and then we'll get into discussing the characteristics of various disabilities. This is an important one. Tanya?
I don't have anything to say right now.
Okay, that's okay. I'll go ahead and put your hand down. So if you're having trouble with this part, maybe bring up your notes or search on the internet. I got you started with a few types of disabilities here. A couple important ones are Down syndrome and autism spectrum disorders. Do we know the disability category for this and the disability characteristics? Okay, Nicole says Down syndrome is ID. Disability characteristics, Nicole? Physical and cognitive. Good job. So we know that children with Down syndrome have overall slower development in physiology and motor skills. They grow more slowly in physical size and attain smaller statues than typically developing children. So non-disability characteristics we know would be fuller statures and muscle tone. normal physical size. Also, we know that coordination and balance are all part of normal motor skills. Anything else for down before we move on? Something that might be helpful later on is knowing that Down syndrome students have a chance of getting celiac disease. They're more likely. They could also have trouble with eating skills. They could have smaller hands, smaller fingers, smaller necks. Okay, we have autism spectrum is ASD. Thank you, Charlene. And Charlene, what are the disability characteristics? Looks like Sharonda, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I had a question about the disability categories. Are these the ones the 13 ones that we learned earlier this year? Because I didn't receive any notes.
Yes, these are the 13 ones.
Okay. Just checking.
Okay, go ahead and put you back on mute. Malia?
Lack of eye contact, or are you looking for specific characteristics, or are we looking for a kind of a general?
General is fine.
Okay. So eye contact, yeah.
Yep.
Repetitive behavior. Repetitive behavior.
Okay, good, thank you. Could be nonverbal, trouble communicating with others. Behavior or social interactions. Yes, Nicole, trouble with social and communication deficits. They have trouble working on a task they do not want to do, so motivation or following instructions. Maladaptive behaviors. Yes, thank you. Difficulty with overstimulation. Delayed language development. Okay. Would you like to move on to another disability? Yes. Okay. How about deaf? Do we know the disability category? Otha?
I have none at this time.
Okay, do you know the disability characteristics?
No, not certain with that.
Okay, that's fine. Malia?
I think it's under hearing impairment. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
And what are the disability characteristics?
Inability to process audio, or a harder time hearing it. So completely inability or trouble. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And non-disability characteristics?
Hearing sounds and audio just fine. Verbal.
Yep.
I don't know how to say that.
Yep, sounds good. Malia, would you like to go on to the next one?
Sure. We could do blind.
Okay. And what is the category?
It's something sight. Visual. Oh, I forget what it's called. Visual
Okay,
impairment.
characteristics.
Is it okay? Visual impairment, I think, is what it's called. And characteristic would be obviously a lack of being able to see fully or at all. Could be complete blindness.
Okay. And
So the
physical?
opposite of that would just be to be able to see correctly or see fully.
Okay. Or just minor impairment.
Okay.
Thank you, Malia. Does anyone have the next one for us? Tanya?
ADHD.
Okay, thank you. And what is the category?
Is that other impairments?
I believe so. Okay, and what are the characteristics?
Easily distracted.
What else?
Maybe they appetite they don't have a appetite or
Okay.
can't fidgeting.
Trouble with focus?
Yeah.
Okay, and what are the typical?
They can focus on schoolwork and they don't fidget in their seats and they can stay on task.
Okay, good. Thank you, Tanya. Okay, would somebody like to add an additional area? Looks like we have a few here. We certainly don't have all of them. What's another important one that you'd like to discuss? Malia?
Emotional impairment.
Okay. I'll add a column here. Okay, and what is a type of disability?
I think it's just emotional disability. Is that what we would put there?
I believe so.
Okay.
And what are some of the characteristics?
Right, an inability to work through emotions or to handle emotions.
Okay. And what would be the typical characteristic?
Or an ability to respond appropriately and to keep emotions under wraps.
Good. Okay, thank you, Malia. Okay, it looks like we're running a little short on time. Our time is almost up, and we did not get all the way through this. So I will, again, send this out to everyone so that you can continue working on this and the rest of it. I did want to get to a little bit of a wrap-up. What have you learned about your strengths? Would someone like to share about something they've learned about their strengths, weaknesses, and where you can find resources to support your gaps in learning? I know we all found that we have a little bit of a gap recognizing the 13 categories, which is important. Would someone like to share for us that? Or Otha? Otha?
I'm sorry, I'm just now getting it. Say that again.
Yes, would you like to share about what you've learned about your strengths and weaknesses as we went through this worksheet?
I would say with my strengths, just by working as a sped para in each of these categories, atypical, typical, I have experienced it by working with the students every day that I work with.
Okay, thank you. Sharonda? Sharonda?
As far as my strength, I have been able to have information that, like the 13 categories. Once we had this before, I had pulled it up and printed it out so I can retrieve the information when necessary. So the GCU library has been a great resource, as well as their books that they have online, and we had to purchase our resources that are great. Some of my weaknesses are being unsure of the answers. It's like I know the answer, but I feel like if I say it, it might be wrong. But if I don't say it, I won't know if it's right and or wrong.
Okay. So thank you, and you also answered where you can find the resources. So thank you. We do appreciate that. Tanya?
My weaknesses is I think I need to, go back and maybe read over a little bit more of this material. Even though I do it every day, sometimes you don't put it together with, when somebody's asking you a question about it, although you're actually doing some of these things and you're actually seeing some of these things while you're in the classroom. But I guess it's just kind of try to put it together with remembering, I guess, all the correct terms and everything, and correlate it with what you're actually doing. So
Right.
I think I need to work on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it can be a little hard when you're kind of put on the spot like this, but that's also what the test is going to be like. So that's why it's kind of good. Okay, we have some, Charlene here says, weaknesses for me, getting anxious while test taking. Yep, that's the exact situation we're in here. Charlene is going to find resources online and in her class notes. Thank you. Nicole has learned a lot about the disabilities and categories. And Nicole says, thank you for sending that, and has some ideas for how she's going to fill in the rest of this sheet. Thank you. And for the information exchange, I'd like you all to be able to collaborate in between sessions. Our next session is not for 2 weeks, when we'll be discussing worksheet 2 for domain 2, So while you're finishing up worksheet 1, you can collaborate with one another to get this filled out. If you just type in the questions box there, type your full name and full email address. And that way I will be able to send out an email to all of you who participated today. I'll include all of your names and email addresses to one another so you can continue collaborating filling out worksheet 1. I'll also be sending a follow-up to everyone who attended today with information on our next session. So please go ahead and type in your name and email address if you would like to continue collaborating with the group in between sessions, which I highly recommend because we did not get through everything today. Good, I see lots of names coming in. If you haven't gotten your name in yet, please try to do it quickly. Also, just a reminder here, this is the evening session. I'm also having a morning session for session 1. So if you want to learn more about session 1, you can also attend the morning meeting if you choose. It will be exactly like what we did here today. And session 2, the evening meeting, is September 11th at 4 p.m. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why it says a.m. there, but it is 4 p.m. on September 11th. That is session 2, the evening session. You can also find this registration link on our Professional Learning Network. So have a good week. I know this went wrapped up pretty quickly, but we had a lot to say. I think we had some good discussion, and it was helpful, although we just couldn't get through everything. So you'll see that there's a lot of content covered in this exam, so I'm glad we were able to get through at least part of it. So please continue working on your study worksheet 1. I will send out an email to everyone first thing tomorrow morning so you can continue your collaborations. So thank you for attending today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.